I'm going to try to be more of a regular presence on my channel instead of just coming on every couple months with a surge of content and then suddenly I disappear again. And I figured one way to do that is maybe every other week or so to offer up a review or a video log or some shorts, essays, things that I have in the works. Just try to constantly have something going for myself in terms of content that I can put out on a pretty regular basis. So here's one of them, my thoughts on this year's Oscars. I was actually inspired to want to talk about this. I've been wanting to talk a little bit more in depth about my feelings on the Oscars overall for a while now, ever since I saw a video from a channel that I follow, Deep Focus Lens. Go check out their stuff. Really insightful, really even-handed critiques of movies of many different varieties, as well as thoughts overall on the industry and the trends that we find ourselves phasing in and out when it comes to movies. And they posted a video recently, like I said, last month, called Why the Oscars Don't Matter. It got me thinking, because I was agreeing with certain points, absolutely, about why a lot of people might feel the Oscars, if not as an award, but as a ceremony, is a very outmoded or kind of archaic idea. And so it got me thinking about, well, what are my own kind of ideas or my own personal sort of connections to what's been considered for decades prestigious kind of award. I found that I'm very touch and go when it comes to the Oscars based on year to year. It's very much dependent on my familiarity with the material that is being nominated. In terms of this year, I've seen 6 out of the 10 Best Picture nominations. Hopefully in the next week and a half or so, until we get to the ceremony itself and the broadcast, I can catch up a little bit more. I'm probably not going to be able to just because life gets busy. Sometimes I'm very much in the know about what is going to possibly be heading for a win, and other years I'm very much just out of step with what the Academy has planned for their nominations. It got me thinking about, well, okay, what do I actually find is my criteria of Oscar worthy? Because I'm sure everyone has their own very specific barometer of what is Oscar worthy. If you've ever thought about, like, okay, this movie, what do I enjoy so much about it that I feel could extend towards a more broad audience, or that I feel could be received more by not just the industry itself, but by the general audience. I've narrowed it down to 3 or 4 pillars, I guess, and I can list them off here really quick. One is, of course, on the technical side of things, is there a mastery of the craft of filmmaking when it comes to cinematography, set design, or production design overall, casting, performances overall, the actors and the technique they put into their performances. You could have a great concept at the root of your movie, but it does you very little good if your performances or your mastery of the camera is not up to snuff to be able to support your thesis statement. The second aspect is that thesis statement. Thematically, narratively, character-wise, what is there that not only can be engaging for me, but also what's there to challenge me? You know, we have films that we go into expecting a certain kind of payoff or a certain kind of experience, and we get that, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with having those films that are perhaps predictable, or that we can perhaps set our enjoyment levels to in a certain fashion and be satisfied. But then also I like to go into films where maybe I don't know a lot about the topic or about the themes overall, or even a film that dares me to sit with a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling and to see if it eventually wins me over. If over the course of the viewing, my perspective on the material maybe has completely shifted around. Like, I absolutely want to challenge myself with films like that, where the story or the themes or, like I said, characterizations are things that I either click with and can find nothing but pure enjoyment and engagement with, or that I eventually am warm to. The third aspect, and this might be the most cynical pillar, in my criteria, but I do feel it is still essential, is the marketability, the business side of it. And when I say marketability, I'm not necessarily thinking with regards to like, oh, okay, does this test well with focus groups? I'm thinking more in lines with the idea of what is the creative team or the production team doing to really get their name, get their film out there to be seen by as many different people as possible. For the aforementioned idea of perhaps you'll win over some new viewers, perhaps you'll open up some eyes to new experiences. What are they doing to be able to make this a one-of-a-kind, you can't miss it cinematic experience? Whether it's a movie made exclusively for a particular platform, whether it's an international film that gains a lot of traction. I'm happy to say, like, my whole perspective on movies in the past 5 to 10 years, I want to say, has been shifted for the better because I opened up my mind and my heart to a much more diverse array of films. That, as much as I love big blockbusters and high concept fantasy, science fiction type stuff, I've opened myself up to dramas that were really sold well to me, or to, like I said, foreign films that maybe I never would have found on my own, but good word of mouth and kind of some great hype surrounding the film overall really led me to a brand new piece of cinema that I can love and appreciate. In fact, I feel that's kind of the main appeal for me with Oscars, especially with films that I never would have found on my own, is this idea of, for your consideration, I never would have found things like, say, Drive My Car. And the final one, which I feel, ties into all these other individual aspects in some way, shape, or form, is the longevity of the film itself. 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, is this going to be a movie that perhaps, if not for anyone else, but just me personally, I'm going to come back to and either appreciate in the same way and say, yes, this is why this is Oscar worthy, or find new aspects to either consider or, like I said, appreciate. And everyone's going to be different. Again, like any great art form, your enjoyment of films and movies overall is totally subjective. Certainly, you can debate some factual aspects of filmmaking and things like that on whether or not it is the right path to, say, shoot a film a certain way or convey characterization a certain way. But when it comes to ultimately the Oscars, certainly the Academy is going to be the arbiter of what is deemed prestigious. I feel that's the main kind of cultural disconnect with the Oscars. There's, I feel, a lot of different factors about this. One is, from what I can understand, the Academy is made up of a lot of older folks, people who, might not be as malleable to shifts in how people convey certain narratives or themes in the movies, or how certain techniques might be utilized in films. So there's that aspect of it, that there's a generational issue perhaps taking place when it comes to voting on the nominees. There's certainly, and Deep Focus Lens talked about this a lot, there's certainly a political angle to the films that either are selected for nomination or that end up winning. And political can extend to the idea of what is considered perhaps elitist, or what is considered perhaps more mainstream. Are elements of the film that are being represented here perhaps not really in vogue for the current times, or is it more of a relic from a bygone era of filmmaking that, probably had a little bit more of a conservative kind of eye? Is it a film that perhaps transgresses in certain areas and either can really be like that one movie that everyone's super fixated on being like, let's make this the dark horse candidate? Or is this one that absolutely everyone's going to be like, how the hell did this even get into the running? And then you factor in the actual broadcast itself and what the company and channel that holds the rights to the broadcast want to get out of that whole experience. And will it gel with their commercial viability for the Oscars or not? And here's where it gets interesting for this year, because as a lot of you who do follow stuff like this, perhaps on film Twitter or things like that, know there's several different things they're trying out this year with the Oscars. Some of it, I kind of just roll my eyes at and be like, yeah, this is a desperate ploy for ratings, certainly. This is what they're trying to do to cultivate a wider general audience viewership that they never really seemed that concerned about before in previous years. But also, it's what I feel is sort of the last gasp of a terrestrial network trying to hang on to the old format of, broadcasting. These days where, honestly, the Oscars could do well for themselves on an online platform like YouTube or something like that and just stream exclusively on that platform, perhaps. Yeah, ABC certainly is throwing everything they can at this year to try and be like, here's why you should tune in the old-fashioned way. And it's funny that a lot of it does rely upon an online aspect. Because first of all, there's that favorite movie of the year, or I don't remember what the hashtag was at this point. I remember I had a good laugh about it, though, when it turned out that the Amazon Cinderella was in the lead for this. But yeah, like most popular movie, essentially. They've been teasing this for a while now. They've been saying, like, we're going to incorporate this most popular, viewer's choice type of aspect to the Oscars, and it looks like this is the olive branch they were given. It's like, well, it's going to be there, but it's more of like you vote online, and then we'll, during the commercials or, in an interim during the ceremony, we're going to say who won the poll. I will say I'm going to be very curious to see if that goes through fully, and also, like, if Cinderella stayed in the lead there, just because I know there's fans of a certain arachnid superhero-themed movie that would totally be kind of up in arms about being like, really? Really, that's what got it? I mentioned this on Twitter. It's like, it's an asinine kind of exercise, I feel, but it deserves an asinine outcome like that. So I'm curious about that, to see what is actually going to be made of that particular facet of the proceedings. The other one is their very controversial decision to axe a slew of smaller, I guess what you would deem smaller or more technically focused awards from the broadcast, and just mention perhaps who won, say, editing and things like that, which I get why that's controversial. And honestly, yeah, it is a little distressing, because if anything, I'd be more curious now that, I have this more expanded view on filmmaking compared to when I was, say, a teenager, or even like, in my early 20s. Like, I would love to know who wins best editing. I would love to know and to see what they have to say about the craft of editing overall, so long as it's nothing long-winded, or reliant on too many platitudes, which we'll get to. But yeah, that idea of kind of axing those for broadcast because either you want to placate more to an audience that you're not guaranteed you're going to pull in by appealing to more common denominator type of films, or you just want more time for ad revenue or advertising to play out. I really think we need to shorten this broadcast, so one thing you could do is maybe not do that so much, but they're desperate like that. The triple hosting idea, I'm like, whatever. I honestly haven't been, when I do tune into the Oscars, it really isn't for the meme-worthiness of certain parts of it. I definitely feel like there's an over-reliance on shtick in recent years when it comes to the Oscars, where we don't really need that. I get it. You want to appeal, again, to that wider general audience. But again, when that general audience that does watch gives you feedback, perhaps saying, like, was that really necessary? It's something that I'm kind of like, you could do with less of this. An opening monologue, sure. You want to be able to break the ice with the audience, both present there for you and the viewers at home, sure. No problem. So long as it's nothing that's completely tone deaf or cringeworthy, sure. Other than maybe like, I like what they were doing for a while with just like the short musical blurbs for like, say, original songs or scores, where they would have certain performers take the stage. I don't mind that so much. Could do with less filler stuff, less filler jokes, things like that, that kind of just prolong what is already an overdrawn and bloated ceremony. That ultimately brings me to what I feel is the ultimate time waster, and what definitely I feel, especially since we've been, in the past couple of years, been on like running things as effectively and as truncated as possible for the sake of, for the sake of our own health. The speeches. If Jane Campion from a couple of weeks ago taught us anything, have your speeches locked down. Whether or not you know for sure you're going to win, just have your speeches tight, succinct, locked down. Please don't go off script. Please don't ad-lib, because that just takes us to some really weird and uncomfortable at times territory. I will pull from Chappelle's show here, the wrap it up button. We need to lock down that thing a little bit more so. I get it. It's your time to shine and be like, I got things to say. Sure. In this day and age, it doesn't need to be at an award ceremony. Do what we all do. Start a YouTube channel and have your things to say on there. We don't need to have the Joaquin Phoenix cow inseminating tangent. Please, Jane, if you're gonna win, keep it terse. Just keep it terse to the point and don't deviate, because my God. Ultimately, I feel that would cause for not just a tighter kind of ceremony overall, but also I feel your viewership would be amicable to that. I feel the general audience overall isn't looking for train wrecks. We are. Online people are, because, for a lot of us, that's how we thrive, is being able to be like, we can meme this. We can get this going for a while, sure. And I'm sure the snafus and faux pas and things that were better left unsaid, they're still going to happen. Definitely. They're definitely going to happen. And the discourse will be wild, I'm sure. But I just have that overall feeling of like, as much as I love seeing certain talents win and get their recognition, we absolutely could do with less ad-libbing, with less off-the-cuff comments. That's like, we get it. You're up there on the platform and we're held hostage by you giving a speech right now. Be generous. Be kind to us. I know a lot of this is mainly pipe dream stuff because, again, all those moving factors of marketability for the ceremony overall, ABC's involvement, and what the Academy feels that it's trying to do in order to kind of keep its choices relevant to the broader world audience. It's a lot of juggling. And I do understand, like, a ceremony like the Oscars, you can't just slap it together and expect it to run smooth as silk. Like, there's going to be stuff that just doesn't work, stuff that just completely the next day people be like, I can't believe that happened, can you? But overall, when it comes to the actual award itself and what I kind of find the award to represent in my own personal barometer of movies are those four pillars that I feel you can represent fairly in the ceremony itself. To kind of have, say, someone who gave a brilliant performance as a character come out and just give a nice, reserved, succinct speech and take it graciously. To have a craftsman who has worked so hard at their particular aspect of filming for years or decades, or maybe it's some fresh face that really is the rising star in talent, for them to be able to get the recognition they deserve instead of whichever memeable movie the Kids' Choice Awards would have gone with. Instead of having to hear about that, let's actually hear from the people behind the camera. And yeah, to really have selections that I feel 5, 10, 15 years from now, I'll come back to and say to myself, if to no one else, I totally get why this won. I still get why this won. I'm glad this won. That's it. That's my disorganized ramble on the Oscars and what I thought. Will I tune in to watch it? I tend to check out at least the opening. That definitely does set a tone. If I feel the opening and the monologue and the direction they're deciding to focus things is taking a certain turn, I'll be like, I'll catch up with the highlights tomorrow. I don't need to know right here, right now. But if it turns out to be something that I would want to invest that handful of hours in, you may just see me live tweeting it as we go along. Like I said, my mind is currently set on trying to catch up with the films that I haven't seen yet. Hopefully in the next week and a half, I can see a couple more, if not all of them. We'll see. Thank you all for listening to me talk about this in a very disorganized way. Like and subscribe, do all that good stuff, yada, yada, yada. Let me know in the comments, like, what is your personal barometer for Oscar-worthy? Is Oscar-worthy even a term that you feel holds any weight at this point? Like, yeah, it's all subjective. And, you know, I'm sure there's a great handful of you that watch me that are like, Oscars don't mean jack shit. And I totally get it. It's just whenever I've been reflecting on, you know, when I've watched anything that was nominated or won an Oscar, it's helped me kind of develop, like, okay, you know, if I had to hand to God, you know, say, like, what is Oscar worthy for me? Here's what my criteria would be. If you have a criteria like that, I'd love to hear about it. I'll try to be more regular with the content and the content machine.